Well, Kieran, what a pleasure it is to speak with you. Thank you so much for doing this. I know it's a bit cliche, but we always enjoy hearing how actors got their start in the business. Did you always know that you wanted to go into acting, or was there a time you might have taken a different path?
No, I mean, quite a big story in the sense that I was born in Kenya, and by the time I was 6 or 7 year old, uh, I found out that I can make people laugh by imitating their mannerisms and making it bigger. Especially one of my uncles, I used to do a lot, and on the street where we were based in Nairobi, people found out and they used to make me do it. And ever since then, it was like, yeah, this is what I want to do for my living, to be an actor.
So, The Sign of Four was in 1987, and you had just done Gothic with director Kevin Russell and Aliens with James Cameron, where you did stunt work for Carrie Henn. What was it about the Granada project that got you interested, and did you have any reservations about doing television after doing such top-notch film work?
No, because it was a good idea. I mean, I had no idea about it. I knew about Sherlock Holmes, and I read a couple of books, but not Sign of Four. I got a phone call from my agent and went to Granada building in Soho to have a meeting with Peter Hammond. And had a meeting like what he was talking about. When I finished the meeting and as I was going away, he went, you know what, Kiran, it's going to be a shame that I'm going to cover your face and make you look ugly. And I went, in that case, have I got it? And he goes, yeah, you got it. And I got home and I started reading the book to find out a little bit more. And yeah, it was really good fun.
Yeah. Well, obviously, there was a lot of facial prosthetic makeup for the character of Tonga. I mean, that's something you're no stranger to now. But back then, was that a new thing for you, that much facial makeup?
No, I mean, remember Legend?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was before that. Dark Crystal, where I worked with masks, a mask or heads or hand masks. And my background is my masks and movements. That's where I came from. That was my background. And to work with Tonga, the mask, that thing. And I learned from Legend that once you got your prosthetic on, about quarter or a little bit more than quarter of your character is done for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? And so it's
Yeah.
easy to carry on after that.
Yeah. How long did that makeup take to apply?
About 2 hours.
That's not too bad.
2 hours, yeah, and it was applied by Glenda Wood. I think it was one continuous piece, if I remember correctly. I think it was one continuous piece.
Yeah.
And then it was the wig. Ears were, I think my ears were colored to match them or match the mask or whatever. So, yeah, I think it was one piece.
So when you're in these kinds of characters where you are in the makeup chair for hours at a time, I imagine you must get to know the makeup people in all of these movies and shows probably better than most. How did you find Glenda Wood? Did you guys become good friends?
Yeah, we did. I mean, it was really great because she was funny
Hmm.
and she was really good. She was like going, I'm going to, I'm going to be gentle with you. After that one first initial meeting with Glenda, I mean, yes, she's going to be fun to work with because she was always cracking jokes and, always laughing, smiling.
Yeah.
with big teeth sticking out.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, like, maybe you probably don't want to be smiling too much when they're trying to get the makeup on.
No, no. But what we did, because I like standing up a lot when I'm on sets and stuff like that. Like I would be standing up and she would do the makeup, sitting down on the makeup chair and applying the makeup on me. And I kept doing that for her. And it was really good fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, talking about the makeup a little bit more, there's a few scenes of you in the water in this one with the blowgun and also the death scene. Did you have trouble keeping that makeup on in the water, or was it pretty durable?
It was durable because remember, I wasn't in the water that long as well. I mean, especially for the death scene. And the last scene was done in the tank where you can see my face, very close up of the face. And that can only be done in the studios in a very, very small tank.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. So, but was there any time when you were actually in the water in the river, or was all your water stuff done in the tank?
No, I did the jump from the boat into river in Norfolk.
Okay.
Norfolk, or somewhere near Norfolk area. And I did the jump off the boat, I think about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, freezing cold, midwinter. And the diver, safety diver, gave me about 3 minutes in the water. And after that, it was going to jumping and just take me out.
Yeah.
Basically, because of the chill factor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, at least you had a fur coat to keep you warm, you know.
To begin with, I had 2 layers of wetsuit on, or the safety diver went, go with the 2 layers, and then your fur coat, the whole suit, and jumped in. And you know what happened? I bounced. I couldn't sing.
Oh, no.
I was bouncing in the water, and Peter went, we'll let you do it again, Kiran, because you were bouncing. But they had to take me into the pub, into the hot pot, put me in there, warm me up, and reapply the makeup.
Okay.
And we did with 1 wetsuit and the costume. And this time it worked perfectly. And I think I was in the water for about a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but so this is interesting because I've always been curious about this. I mean, this show didn't have a ton of stunts that I recall, but how does that work when you're an actor and a stuntman? Does one typically get paid for 2 different jobs, or is it all kind of covered as one?
Covered as one, put it that
Okay.
way. Because because the stunt coordinator would be there, and they would always go, "Oh, great, you see you, brilliant. Then we can throw you about or wherever, and next year you're going to be safe as well." And so usually I used to end up doing all my stunts.
When we've been talking about this episode a lot, and we were curious where the footprints came from.
Yeah, they are my footprints. They made me do that. They made me do that. You're getting paid for that. You don't do that.
That's funny. We were curious about that.
No, they made me do that. It looked like they put the makeup on my bottom feet and walk.
Oh, they did put makeup on your feet? Did they put like false feet, like Hobbit feet on you?
No. No prosthetic, but just body thing. Like dirty feet.
Yeah.
How many days? I mean, I know it's making you think back quite a long time, but do you remember about how many days you spent shooting on this one?
More than 20, 30 days.
Really? Wow.
No.
Yeah.
How much
crazy.
rehearsal time was there for things like stunts in this?
Yeah, because I did stunts. A lot of the stunts I had to do. I did couple of stunts in Morita. But it was kind of a stunt, just being inside in the water tank again, and being inside that water tank and coming up and blowing my dart at one point, and there was one in the boat until I go into the water.
Right.
Can you still blow a good dart gun?
Haven't tried it for a long time, so don't know.
Well, let's talk about the character of Tonga for a moment. I think today it would be more controversial since Tonga is meant to be an Andaman Islander, but the way he's portrayed in the story, it's not quite historically accurate. But I mean, I'm curious, was there ever any discussion on set about that kind of thing, about like the cultural sensitivity around that group of people? I kind of assume not, since it was the 80s after all.
No,
Nothing like that? Yeah.
nothing. It was like you are an islander and from Pacific Islands, right? Yeah. And or from Tonga itself. That's why his name is Tonga. And they went just, think about Eastern culture and go with that.
I guess just about all of your scenes were with the incredible Mr. John Thaw as Jonathan Small. And he was quite a big star in England at the time. How did you find working with him on set?
He was great to work with him. It was really, really good because he was very friendly, very down to earth. He had no ego. He would talk to anyone on sets. Basically everything. And he taught me one really good thing when doing close-ups. And he went, if we are doing a close-up, don't look in the barrel unless they tell you to, or look a little bit up over the barrel or a little bit below the barrel, but do not look on either side unless they tell you to. That was a really good advice from him.
Yeah. Now, I know you didn't really have any scenes with Sherlock Holmes himself, but did you get to spend much time with Jeremy Brett during the shoot?
Yeah, well, I did. We used to talk. On the first day, he came and introduced himself to me. Then we started talking. Then he started taking Mickey out of me and my eye. He didn't cross the line because that was fun. And he knew that. And he sensed it. If I cross the line, then he's not going to be happy. He kept it to the level. For me, that meant he knows. And he knows how to, get near people. And that's really good way of, meeting people on the set. I think a lot of great actors are like that. They haven't got, a lot of great actors haven't got egos.
Yeah.
Especially the old actors.
Because they don't need it. Like you don't need it. You've done it all.
Yeah, you've done it all. You are there learning all the time. That's what I learned from David Niven in my first movie. And he was the one who told me, be friendly, look at everything, talk to everyone, and you'll go far.
Yep, and you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've heard stories that Jeremy and the whole team was kind of like a family, a company, and they were very welcoming to people, but also that things could get a bit crazy during the, rap parties, and sometimes there'd be dancing on tables and that kind of thing. Did you guys get to have any nice parties together?
In Malta we didn't have any party. In London we didn't, but the rap party was good. Whatever happened at rap party stays at the rap party.
That sounds like Tonga got up on the table and did some dancing at some point.
Probably.
Well, this one was directed by Peter Hammond. What do you recall about Mr. Hammond? What kind of a director was he?
Peter was good in what he did. He knew what angles he was going to go with. He's got his own technique. And remember, this was the first time we were going with 18 millimeter.
Oh, yeah, 35 millimeter film, yeah.
Yeah, 35, yeah. And Granada had never done anything with 35 before. And it was their first ever project with 35. So they were like, okay, how is it going to work, or isn't it going to work, for the small screen? That was what Peter was concerned about. But apart from that, it was fun. Very quiet, very gentle.
Was it difficult for them to make that transition to the 35 millimeter? Did you observe them having trouble with that, or was it?
As far as I can say, no. I didn't see any difficulty between DOP and Peter. They were all sort of working together, and they were going, okay, let's try this, let's try that. If it works, fine. If not, we can always redo it. So they were like playing with ideas that way.
Have you watched The Sign of Four lately?
Not lately. The last time I saw would have been about a couple of years ago.
I was curious how you thought it held up. Are you still proud of it? Do you still like it?
Yeah, I'm still proud of it. It just held up because remember, it's a period story in a sense, God, the previous stories are going to, still held up no matter, how many years have been gone by.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And Granada was great about that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it looks great. Yeah. Did you ever work with John Thaw or Jeremy Brett or any of the Granada folks again after the Sign of Four?
Not really. John Thaw and I kept in contact with each other for about, quite a few years. Either he would ring me or I would ring him. If I was away, I would get a message and I'd come back, from wherever I was and ring him and go, okay, right, I'm back. And then we would have a little, talk and stuff for them. So with John, we had that friendship going for quite a while.
Yeah.
And with Glenda, we would talk. We had a friendship for quite a while, and then in this industry, what happens is that we are traveling everywhere and all that, and after a while, it pieces out.
It's a transient lifestyle. You meet a lot of new people all the time. So, yeah.
But speaking of John Thaw, I kind of wondered because we spoke to Esther Dean, who did the costuming, and she mentioned that John Thaw was expecting to have a crutch for his scenes because of his wooden leg. Yeah. But it kind of turned out that you ended up being his crutch.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't really walk.
Exactly.
I wondered how that conversation went down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was leaning on me quite a lot. He had a crutch. I think a couple of times or something like that, he did have a crutch. But whenever he didn't have the crutch, it was me that he used to put a hand on my shoulder or my head. No, he wasn't allowed to put his hand on my head because of the wig and all that stuff. So it was always my right shoulder.
Yeah, it looked difficult for both of you at some times.
Yeah. Well, coming from the stunt area background, you can take the weight or you can do things. So it wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
You were probably the perfect person for that job.
Yeah.
Well, you had one of the very first scenes in the episode is you knocking Alf Joint over the head with your club. Did you know Alf Joint? Because he was also a fellow stuntman. Did you know him?
Yeah, fellow stuntman. Prior to Sons of Force, I have worked with him a lot. I knew Alf, and Alf Joint went, you can hit me on the head. And I went, what do you mean? And he goes, really hit me on the head, it will be fine. Not yet. And he went down and he went, not that hard, Kiran.
That's pretty funny. I am curious, you were kind enough to send us a fantastic photo, which we'll share with the audience, of some of the props that you were able to hold on to after the shoot. And I see your teeth and your wig and your smoking pipe.
Yep.
Is that normal? Do the productions usually let you keep things like that?
No, put this way, in 70s, 80s, production people didn't care about the props and costume. Usually they would end up in a skip. And then there was some shrewd people who knew, let's take them. And they kept them and they're worth a lot of money now. And what happened was when I went to do for Granada TV in Manchester, they had set up a makeup room for public, where they can see how everything's done. And what they did with me was a time-lapse film of applying the makeup. And as I was living in Glenda, went, you can take the wig and the teeth if you like. And I went, okay, that's fine, I'll take them with me.
Yeah.
And, that's how I got it. And that cigarette holder was made for me, not to be in the movie. It was made for me because I used to smoke at that time, cigarettes. And what happened was, because when you got a prosthetic, I have always found a way to smoke. And this was did. But the prop guy came in and went, Kiran, no, half the cigarette is going in your mouth, or it looks like that. I'm going to make you a cigarette holder, and he made me that cigarette holder.
That's
Wow.
pretty cool. Did
Yeah.
you ever use that on any other sets?
No, once it's the prop, I like to keep it somewhere else.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was really funny because when I had that prop, the cigarette holder, and I used to put the cigarette in there and smoke on the set, especially in Malta, on location, and smoke, there. And Peter saw me smoking, and he goes, "I've got an idea, Kiran. I'm going to use that for that scene. That Jonathan Small is sleeping behind you,
Yeah.
and you are there as a lookout. So why don't you have a cigarette and your blowpipe and cigarette and with that holder?"
Did you get to keep your dart gun?
No,
Ah,
that one prop I couldn't get.
yeah.
So how hot? How much were you sweating in that makeup? Did they bring in air conditioners to keep you cool?
I don't mind heat. I was born in Kenya, and the thing I can stand in the heat, and it won't affect me. No, it takes a long time for me to sweat.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good for a stuntman.
Yeah, not only for a stuntman, but doing that kind of work, playing creatures, because I'm
Right.
always covered in very, very thick costumes and
Yeah.
heavy masks.
Now this wasn't the only time you worked with the great detective or even played the character of Tonga, because you were also in the 1991 film Crucible of Blood with the great Charlton Heston. So I want to talk to you about that, but I want to also ask you, you weren't involved in the original stage play with Charlton Heston, were you?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
The stage play didn't come to London. I don't think it did. Or if it did, I don't remember.
Yeah, and well, I don't know if you know this, but in the on the stage play version, Jeremy Brett actually played Watson to Charlton
Really?
Heston's Holmes.
Well, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. And by the time they made this movie, Jeremy obviously had become so famous for playing Sherlock Holmes, he couldn't very well return to playing Watson. So
No, exactly. But no, that I had no idea about that.
yeah, interesting. Yeah. Well, I can only imagine you never thought you would play Tonga again. So how was it like going back to the character? I mean, did they cast you based on the Granada show? How did that all come together?
Again, no, they didn't cast me because I did it before. It was Eddie Stacy, the stunt coordinator. And because there were about 2-3 stunts, one was on the tree, but in the lightning, you see something, like thing up there in the lightning, and then jumps down. And all of that, because Eddie Stacy put my name in to Fraser and go, "Look, I got this guy. He will give you the character, complete character, and he will do the stunts as well." And go up and Dean that saw me and they went, "Yeah." Or maybe they may have known about me from the Granada one, but
Yeah.
they didn't tell me about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's just such a different portrayal, given that they didn't put, I don't think they really put any makeup on you. It's certainly not any prosthetics.
They made me dirty. There was a little bit of prosthetic, and this time it was applied by Nick Dudman, but it wasn't a prosthetic. It was more like sticking a lot of dirt on my face and all that.
Yeah. Well, and then you got to climb all over the boat and then once again fall into the water.
Now there was 2 different stunts. On Science of Fall, I'm jumping from a little boat, if you remember.
Yeah.
On this one, it was a huge ship, and I'm on the mast of the ship at that time. And because of that, Eddie brought me in because that was a big stunt. I think that was about 20 feet high fall into the water.
Was that also on a soundstage, or was that actually in the river?
That was on River Thames, and
Okay.
again it was at midnight.
It's the right time for stunts.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I always tell water stunts. Usually when I do water stunts, they usually happen when it's cold, not warm.
Yep. Somehow that's just the right time.
Yeah, gotta love the producers for doing that to you.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you are, I believe, still the Guinness World Record holder for being the smallest stuntman currently working. Has anyone ever tried to challenge your title?
No one has tried to challenge my title. I don't think there's going to be anybody smaller than me who's ever going to do it. I'm still doing stunts, not everything, but still doing stunts here and there. I'm going to keep that going as long as I can. And if somebody challenges me, good luck to them. Because, then I don't have to worry about doing anything more.
Yeah,
exactly.
All the pressure of having the title now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there some stunts that you'd prefer not to do, kind of at your age? Are you getting to the point where you're like, I don't need to risk my whole life for this really, really difficult stunt, let somebody else do that? Or are you pretty much open to anything still?
No, not anymore. Like drug bags. No, I think in America they call them retreat. Or something like that. And now I won't do them anymore. I've done a few of them. Tip tanks, when tons and tons of water is tipped, and you have to go with the water. Now that's dangerous as well.
Yeah.
I did that on Titanic. Quite a few of the dump tanks. I think Americans call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've done a few of them on Titanic, or quite a lot of them on Titanic. Yeah, anything that I think is going to break me or hurt me, no, I don't want to do that. I mean, I still do high fall, I still do wire work, I still do horse riding. Probably I will not come off the horses anymore. Yeah, basically, there are still a few things I'll do.
Yeah.
What would you say is probably the most dangerous stunt you've ever performed?
Okay, remember this. I can't swim in real life. I've started admitting that for the last few years now, or a couple of years now. I always relied with wetsuit because you're always going to come up, buoyancy. You are going to come up. Have you guys seen Madeline?
Yeah.
The movie about the orphan girl in Paris. Yep. And they were making a movie of that novels or books. And I was given a call by a stunt coordinator who was on Titanic, not Simon Grant, somebody who came to do stunts. And he rang me up and he went, "You are the only one stupid enough to say yes to what I'm going to ask you." And I went, "What was that?" And he went, "I've asked every little guy you can think of in America to do the stunt from Notre Dame Bridge into River Seine, and everyone has turned it down. And now I'm asking you." And I went, "I'll do it." And I did it. And when I did it, when I went up there, I did the recce as well, and sorted out that all the rubbish needs to come out and all that stuff. And on the day when I went to do the jump, the tide went up, so it was by another 3 or 4 feet. It was that much higher, from 27 feet to 30 feet or something like that. And that was like when I went up there, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing up here? And why am I doing this?
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest thing you've done that you're most proud of, like the biggest, most impressive stunt?
I think a lot of stunts on Titanic.
Yeah.
A lot of stunts on Titanic that I did, especially dealing with dump tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And going in the water where I know I can't swim and I can't swim against that water. So I'm always proud of that I survived all those stunts.
Yeah.
And Simon Crane was really great to work with on that one. As soon as I found out that if I can use a wetsuit, then nothing is going to happen to me.
I mean, since we're talking about other films, I mean, you've basically been in all of the greatest movies of all time. So I feel like we'd be burned at the stake if we didn't, ask you some more questions about them. And I'd like to start with Raiders of the Lost Ark because it's one of my all-time favorites. And I'm sure you've been asked these questions a million times, so apologies in advance. But I guess you would have been around 25 years old at the time. Is that about right?
Yeah, about 23.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably when you're shooting, yeah.
Yeah, 23, 24, something like that.
Yeah.
When I did that, yeah.
Well, and you played Abu, the young man who turns his back just for a moment as the villain pours the poison on the dates. And of course, that ends up taking the life of that poor monkey. I was curious, where did you shoot those scenes? Was that Pinewood in England?
That was at Ulster Studio in London. It was really funny because when I went in to meet Stephen Spielberg, he wanted a new face for that character. I mean, it's a tiny character, and it surprised me that why does he need a new face? Anybody could have done it and it would have been great. And the second was that that new face should not have appeared on any other movies. What happened was that in the first day he cornered me, and even if Spielberg ever ask, he will ask you that have you done any movies with your face on the screen? Just tell him no. And even I know that you have done one. People that time forgot, and your face is there, but deny it.
Good advice. Yeah.
Got to get that role.
Yeah. I've always been curious, though, your character in that, who is he meant to be? Is he meant to be one of Salah's kids or just like the house server for the old mystic? I've never actually seen the shooting script. Do you know the characters? Is there any backstory at all?
The backstory is that he's always been with the Salah, looking after him, especially for the food and stuff like that. That was the backstory I was given. And that's all I can tell you. You can go with that wherever you think. When I did the audition on that day, and he kind of went, okay, all I want you to do is open the door. The door is open, and just look out and give an impression that why is the door open? It should have been shut. And I gave that, and he went, yeah, that's what I want. You got it.
I'm sure everybody asks you this, but tell us just a little bit about working with Steven Spielberg. I mean, as far as I know, Raiders of the Lost Ark was actually a pretty fast shoot by today's standards. Yeah. I think they were rushing quite a bit to get that one done. How did that affect you? Were you guys moving really, really fast?
Yeah, because I was given a contract for about 4 or 5 days, and he finished me on my second day. On the first day, he couldn't get around to me. I was called in again and done it, and he went, yeah, Kiran, you're done. You can go home. And I was like, really? It's not even lunchtime. And he goes, yeah, you can go home now.
Wow. Interesting. Well, funny enough, though, your Sign of Four co-star was also in Raiders, Ronald Lacey. Yeah. So, but you guys didn't really have any scenes together in either project. Did you get to know him at all on either project?
I didn't meet him on Raiders, but I did meet him on Signs of Four. And he was really, really quiet guy.
Mm-hmm. Spoke
very softly and very quietly, from what I remember. But no, he was good. I didn't have that much to do with him apart from that one scene of going, by this window or whatever. You
did come back for stunts, right, on Temple of Doom?
Yeah, I did. And again, it was Vic Armstrong who called me back on that. And when Stephen found out that it was me, he was going, yeah, brilliant. It would be great to have Kiran, doing the stunts for the lead character and all the other kids, wherever, if anyone jumps down or whatever, we can use Kiran to do that.
Wow, yeah, it's like I love those movies, and now I want to watch them and just look for you, but I know I won't ever know which of those kids is you because Steven Spielberg is so great at creating that illusion. But it's
No,
great to know that you're in there.
yeah, those two movies I worked with him, and it was fun to work with him because I always liked him, and even even on the Raiders, you know, he would give you direction, go, can you do this or can you do that? And I knew exactly what he was going to do, once I get it there. And then go, can you fall that way or can you, delay your fall by a millisecond or something like that? And I'll go, okay, yeah, I can do that.
Now for another big one. Luke and I are about the biggest Lord of the Rings fans on the planet, and we've watched all the behind the scenes appendices multiple times, and those films look like they were just the greatest adventure to make. But from what it looked like, that must have been, I don't want to say the hardest work you've ever done, but it seems like that was quite a project. Tell us a little bit about those and working with Peter Jackson. I mean, I honestly didn't recognize a lot of the other scale performers as much as I recognize you, obviously. Were they all as experienced as you, or did you find yourself kind of mentoring those other actors in the process?
Yeah, I was kind of mentoring them with another guy called Sean Allen, a normal height Kiwi actor. It was given to me to teach these 4 or 5 people. Most of them had never done a movie in their life. We had to teach them everything. And especially when you are not used to being blind in the mask, it's difficult and you got to be confident. Trying to teach them all the stuff was quite hard. One of my skill double, we did a forward roll, and I don't know how he landed badly. That he ended up throwing up all night, and I had to be with him and had to take him into hospital. And then next morning, spoke to Peter about it that they wouldn't be able to do stunts. I would rather they would not do heavy stunts, little stuff. If you can get away with it, fine, but not big fights or anything like that. And Peter goes, okay, I'll go up on there. The meeting with Peter and Barry Osborne, they had meeting and came back after a couple of hours and they went, good news, Kiran, and bad news. And I went, good news. And he goes, well, you are going to do all 5 Hobbits. And I went, bad news. You going to do all 5 Hobbits and you're going to study them. And I'm going, what? I'm only meant to be here for Frodo and not anybody else. And I went, how are you thinking? I mean, I can't do all 5 in one scene. And he goes, no. What I mean is that the good news is basically that you will be doing whoever is leading the scene, or whichever hobbit is leading the scene.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
Was it overall a positive experience, or was it a nightmare having to deal with with all of that?
Positive in the sense that I love challenges in my work. I literally love challenges. It's something that I can't do, and I'll find a way of doing it, and I know I will do it. And I always done that because that was a challenge. And I thought, okay, right, that means I had to now study all 5 actors, including Sir Ian Holmes. And because I worked with Ian Holmes in Greystoke, I was a baby primate in the Greystoke. God knew that he had a limp in real life. And when we did the scene, when he's walking away from the Hobbiton, Bilbo walking away from the Hobbiton. And what happened there was that Ian wasn't there. And a day before, I turned around to Peter and I went, can you ring up Ian Holmes and ask him what leg is he limping on? I know he limps, but I can't remember which one. And he goes, yeah. And next day, I think it was left leg, if I'm right. And Peter gave me, whatever it was. And I went, okay, I'll give you that. And I did that. And when Ian came to New Zealand and still the footage went perfect.
That's
Yeah.
great.
That's
That
great.
was really good. But now it was difficult in a sense that you're now about to study all 5 of them. I try to pick up the mannerisms and all that. Uh, the fight scenes were like actors and stunt people will get longer time to rehearse. And there were a couple of times where I had to pick a fight within an hour. But remember one thing, and I did tell Peter as well, that you are never going to get 100%. It's never going to happen because humans are very, very unique animals. We change things. We hide body language. We hide a lot of things because we don't want somebody else to know what you're feeling and stuff like that. And that's what actors are good at learning. To do that, to give that to their character. And what happens is that you are trying to pick up so many stuff and you can't do it. But you are going to, at the most, you can do 50 to 70%. If you can get away with that, then you're good enough.
And you in particular, having him tell you need to now learn these 5 people, that must have been easier for you than maybe someone else because you kind of came up doing that, mimicking your uncle.
Yeah, but with a fight scene, if you remember, the thing is that I'm wearing masks of whoever the Hobbit is, and I can hardly see. It's like a pinprick hole
Yeah.
that I'm looking through. I don't know where my hits are going to come from or anything. And the good thing was that the people I'm fighting, the stunt people, they were orcs or Urukais or something like that. And they were in the mask. And they also used to help me. The first time I did it, and we didn't think about it, going, okay, right, fine, and I missed things and everything. And suddenly one of the stunt guy even, you know what, we are going to give ourselves a number. And because we are wearing masks, we can, you do your first move, and then you have to go to number 2. The number 2 will shout out, Kiran, and you turn around there and go, that help, things like that when you muck around with. Then it works.
Yeah.
I seem to remember a story with John Rhys Davies doing something similar where he was starting to like rash up and he couldn't see the stuntmen and they're just like, just start swinging. We'll just run into your punches.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, if you can't see whoever is in front of you, and if you are meant to be going through that way, you could give them a nudge or give them a little kick on their ankles and get them to move.
Luke mentioned John Rhys Davies there. That's another Raiders of the Lost Ark connection. Did you guys get to reconnect much on Lord of the Rings? Did you guys get to spend time? Yeah.
Yeah, we did. I mean, it was really, really funny. My 2 days on Raiders, I remember on set talking to Karen a lot. John Ray was, kind of keeping an eye on me. That what we're doing with Karen all the time. He tried to set it up or book me up here. And so he kept, giving me like, be careful, Kiran. I'm looking at you and fine. Yeah. And then on the Lord of the Rings, he was taking Mickey out of me quite a lot. But it was really fun because we had that connection going. That we didn't think was going to happen. And the other thing is that most of the actors on Lord of the Rings, I have worked with them. And Peter was surprised when Christopher Lee came in. And on the day he came in, and it was evening, and they were walking by my protocol where I was meant to be in. And I just came out, and without looking, I turned and started going. And this booming voice came out, Kiran Shah, aren't you going to give me a hug? And turned around, and it was Christopher Lee. And I ended up giving him a hug. And Peter goes, I didn't know you two know each other. And he was like, oh, yeah, we did a movie long time ago called Arabian Adventures, and that was it. And, a little movie here. And Peter goes, he knows half of my, cast.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody on the cast was that way when people would just say hello to you. They're like, how do you know him? And I don't know him.
Yeah, that's what we did.
So you did cover for 5 different characters on this movie, and it was 3 movies. And it was 3 really long movies. So this must have been the most stunts you ever did for one company. But my question is, like, Gus and I are very inspired by Peter Jackson because he came up as a very indie filmmaker. And I wonder, having worked with James Cameron, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, like what was it like? Like how different was it working with Peter Jackson versus some of those guys?
Peter was really fun, really, really fun to work with in the sense that even before we started filming, and I was there in pre-production, I think, yeah. And he threw a party, flew most of the actors, so we're going to be in all three movies, the main cast. Get a little space that we are all going to be working together. We need to calm our egos. In other words, leave your egos outside the studio or outside the New Zealand and mingle with people over here and become like a family. And that's what happened. And Peter made that happen. And that was really good way of doing that movie because we were going to be together for a year and a half, basically.
Yeah.
To begin with, and we were partying together. We were, enjoying ourselves. Not just like, okay, I am this. I only hang out with this people or that people. No, it happened with everyone, and that was really good fun. And that's how Peter got people to get to work, to enjoy, and himself enjoying with it. He was always the smile. He was always, coming up with ideas or things coming out from him was really good. And always talking to everyone. That was really good. That in a sense that he made that movie like a family movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the first premiere in London, not in New Zealand, in London, and I ended up talking with Fran. Fran, his partner, and we were talking, and we were going, how did you find me? And say when everywhere we talked, our couple of directors, whatever, and then your name kept coming up at the top. And everybody went, if you get Kiran, you'll be laughing, you'll be great. When they got my CV, because what happened with me was I was at Creature Workshop in London around Christmas time doing a fitting for a commercial. And John Stevenson ran that workshop when somebody headhunting you. And I went, oh, and he goes, a guy called Peter Jackson. What's he done? Or why does he want me? Oh, he's going to do Lord of the Ring. And my eyes went, big, twinkling, Lord of the Ring, brilliant. About time somebody did that. And then I went, go, what's he done? And he goes, brain dead. Meet the people and all that came out. And I went, I don't know any of that. And I don't know anything about Peter. They put the movie on brain dead. When I saw that, and I went, no, Peter can't do it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And John was the one who convinced me. So anyway, the Fran went, when we saw your CV, and it looked like everything you've done is something we liked about it, or something we were fans of, or whatever. And then Stephen, we were really frightened of you coming to meet us. And I'm going, why? And we got your CV was the one, basically, that you would come in and you'll say, yeah, I'm not really interested. I'm walking away. And I went, no, I wouldn't do that. And I went, I'm frightened of you guys because what you've done in the past. And I told her that I didn't think that Peter would be able to do it. And she started laughing and she went, we were both frightened. And I went, yeah, we were both frightened of
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, for maybe the listeners who don't know Brain Dead, it's basically a zombie movie which ends with him killing a bunch of zombies with a lawnmower.
Yeah.
So it's not quite the kind of movie that, it doesn't exactly set you up for Lord of the Rings, but he's the kind of guy who will do anything to get a movie made, and that shows in Lord of the Rings, and it's great that they cast you, because I think what we've learned in this interview is that the key to a classic movie is Kiran Shah.
I don't think that's right. Don't try to inflate my ego. No, but the funny thing is I've been lucky that, I ended up in doing so many big movies. But the thing is that I'm willing to do a lot of things that and willing to get into that challenge. The harder it is, the challenging it's going to be, then I want to do it. It's like,
Yeah.
if I can make it move, if I can give him a character, personality, and if I can get it going, then why not? It's a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm actually curious about one role that you didn't get, because legend has it that you also auditioned for R2D2 but lost out to Kenny Baker. Is that true?
Well, yeah, it is true, but not the way you know about it.
Okay.
Right. What happened was I wasn't even doing movies at that time. I was doing experimental theaters, especially mime, mask, and movement stuff. I was doing quite a lot of that. And I'm getting fed up with doing Mars and Marsa, the wall and the rope and the balloon and stuff like that. And I'm like going, I want to get away from this. And I started looking at the stage and television for about a year prior to R2D2 thing. And I saw an advert on one of the stage and television in the magazine at the back. And it was like looking for a small guy for a sci-fi movie, and that was it. And wrote a reply to the casting director. And telegram came back within a week that would you call me now? And so I called the casting director and said, can you come for the meeting in next week? I went for the meeting, and the first question was, after knowing about me, first question was, what have you done, in theaters? And I went, well, I started with a company called Red Buddha Theatre Company. And Red Buddha was a Japanese theatre company. And he went, oh, what did you do in a Red Buddha? And I went, I've learned to work with mask. He taught me. I learned to do a little bit of kabuki, not completely, but just tiny bit of kabuki and movements and stuff, and all that. And she went, okay, if you can do that, this will be good for you. And she rang up Lucas. Well, at that time I had no idea of anything of Lucas or anybody. He didn't mention any name. And a week after that, I was taken to the studio into the work. After meeting Lucas at the studio, talking to him, and he went, yeah, come with me and we'll go to workshop. And in the workshop, they put inside the prototype R2D2. And I made it work. I was Ted taller. I'm Ted taller than Kenny Becker. And I was Ted taller than what they wanted, but I managed to squeeze myself in and tilted my neck to the side and started operating and doing all that. And Lucas did ask me, you going to be comfortable? I went, yeah, I can. Yes, I let him warm up my neck all the time, every time I go in there. And they went, yeah. After a day, the phone call came and, yeah, we are in. And I think within a week, casting director called me back and went, got bad news. Kenny Baker has decided to come back. And he was our first choice. We'll have to let you go. And I'm thinking, okay, right, thank you. And then she went, tell you what, I'm going to get you an agent. And then you can take it from there, Kiran. And she got me a child agent to look after me. And within a month, I was on the movie. It's a standing in.
Well, thank you for setting the record straight on that one.
Yeah.
Very long story.
No, but
but
hearing that story actually made me think of another question for you, which is, how many action figures do you have of yourself at this point?
Quite a few.
See, if you can't even count, that's a pretty good sign.
Yep.
Well, what is next for you? What are you working on nowadays?
One of the things I was going to do in Norway, a Norwegian movie, has been postponed. Hopefully it will take off again in winter. Can't say anything about it. But I'm just waiting for that one to take off now.
That's great. Are you still writing poetry?
Yep, I'm still writing poetry. Still we are going with it.
When do you find the time to write? You're just so busy all the time.
A funny thing about me is I don't need to think about poetry. It comes to me. Literally, I could be thinking of anything or walking somewhere and thinking or saying something, and suddenly the lines would come out. And I had to sit down and write it there and there, and then polish it afterwards. But it comes to me. It's not like I'm not like Dylan Thomas or other
Yeah.
poet.
Do you write poetry in multiple languages or just English? I've only read the English stuff, obviously.
Only in English, because I've been brought up with bilanguage, English and Gujarati, one of the Indian language.
Yeah.
I wondered, have you ever thought about writing a book about your experiences on film sets for people who want to follow in your footsteps and do something similar?
It's in the thinking process. And if there is somebody who is interested, then yeah, probably will go ahead.
But have you ever thought about maybe writing your own memoirs or writing an instructional book for people who want to do what you do?
That is going to happen. And I bumped into a friend in New Zealand, and she was studying direction of movement for opera people and all that, the way they can move and give what they need to. By the end of the 4th year on Lord of the Rings, she rang me up and she was in the performing arts, teaching. And she went, why don't you come up here and, lunchtime, and I'll provide you with a mask, and can you teach, our pupils last year or first year and last year pupils. And I went in there and there were like, 50, 70 pupils there. And, started with what you have to do with the mask. Now you can't put it on. You go study the mask on the table, study the mask, learn the wrinkles, or if they've got warts or anything on their face, use that for your character. Use it. Big nose, big ears, whatever. And then, put the mask on your hand, palm up, head facing you, and start turning it in circles and different moments, and see what happens. And you will find expressions coming from every direction. And once you know that, then you do it in front of the mirror again, mask on the hand, and you start following the mask. And after a while, or after a day of playing, on and off playing with it, suddenly your body starts moving with that mask. And that's when you know that you got your character. And I started, teaching stuff like that. But it was a practical rather than a lecture. Go and get them to do, quick study of the mask and say, okay, give me think about what you can do with that. And, make me laugh or make everybody laugh here. And it was really good fun. And when I came back to London, I did that for a while as well in between work.
So what I'm hearing is it's the Kiran Shah School of Acting and Stunt Work. It needs to happen.
Probably. Probably. Yeah, I think it needs to happen. It does need to happen.
I mean, but that kind of stuff, kind of teaching the younger actors and younger stuntmen, kind of like a set etiquette almost, like how to approach these things and help them get their start, because people don't know that.
No, that's a good idea. I mean, it should happen.
Who was your favorite person to double for, or who was your favorite person to work with as a double?
I think the 5 Hobbits were pretty good. Elijah, Sean Astin, Dominic, and Billy. They were really good. No, they were really good. I mean, if I had to do a stunt for them, remember there were 2 scales of everything.
Yeah.
I would end up doing the skill version of it, and they would come around and if you can do this or that, or but they were really good. They were brilliant to work with. It was really, really fun to work with Vigo when he found out I was a stunt guy. He worked about with me quite a lot, chase me, tackle me, try to get me to into the mud, but I always used to manage to come out, get away from him and get him in the mud. But that was fun. Like people probably weren't happy with me, but I was. That was really good. Carrie from Aliens.
Yeah.
Carrie
She
Henn,
was
yeah.
really good. Yeah, Carrie Haynes. She was really good because when I met her, she was just like a kid. And then when she found me, like her height, because he would come around me and can we play cards or can we do this or can we here? And it was great.
What kind of stuff did you do for Aliens with Carrie Henn? What kind of stunts do you
I
recall?
did all the running, tripping over and falling and stuff like that. Then going around that barrel thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then she slides me into something else, into another area, and did all that. And then with stick on our weaver, when she's burning the eggs, we couldn't use Carrie because the heat was coming back.
Oh, the
So it
flamethrower.
was left for me to be there than Carrie.
I'm kind of curious. Aliens, again, another one of my all-time favorite films. But a lot of information has come out over the years about James Cameron kind of being a bit of a tyrant, a bit of a slave driver on that movie, and a lot of it had to do, obviously, with he had never worked with a British crew before, and there was that. But how did you find him? I mean, was he understandably difficult to work with, or I mean, and how was it different between Aliens and Titanic? I mean, had he changed much as a director over the years?
No, he hasn't changed much.
Okay.
No, he hasn't changed much. In Aliens, remember, this is the first time I'm working with Cameron. James Cameron, for the first time I'm working with him. And the whole thing is he had never worked with British crew. And at that time, what used to happen was at 10 o'clock in the morning, a tea lady will come in with cakes and tea and coffee, and everybody was down their tools and, have a break. And I think one of the story was that one day Valley was, setting up a camera with the DOP and all that. And the tea lady came in and everybody walked over and looked around. There was nobody in there. And that's when he really kicked up. And that was something else because I know I was there. And from there on line, okay, be cool, stay away from him as much as you can. But then on Titanic, it was really, I mean, he hasn't changed, it's all can be said. But on the Titanic was, because I knew his reputation, on the first day when we were on the set, I was trying to hide away from him because I didn't want him to come near me because I knew all the stunt people are going to kill me afterward if he came near me. I was trying to hide behind people, and he went, Kiran, is that you? And I went, yeah. And he came down and gave me a hug. Then he was like, yeah, I'm in for it from the other stunt people.
Yep. Embarrassed in front of everybody. I remember there being a story about them lighting a scene with the big queen at the end of the shot, at the end of the movie, and they're putting smoke everywhere, like all through the back of the set, and there's all this smoke settling, and then right as they get the shot ready, like the door starts opening, and she comes in with her trolley, and everybody just leaves. They're like, it was taking hours to set up this one shot, and then time for tea.
That was the shot where he kicked off.
Yeah.
That was the one. You just reminded me about that scene, yeah.
But it's almost justified. So like, I feel like he's another indie guy who's used to kind of just doing everything, and so when people don't do it with you, you kind of go,
Especially, but the thing is, he's never come back to England to work again. The last time I bumped into James was in Wellington in the studios. He came to see Peter, and he saw me, and again it was the same thing, and Peter, oh yeah, Titanic and Aliens, Peter, you know him from, like we were talking like all the time, with him and his producer and the head of 20th century, the Fox guy, and the Fox guy thinking, what the hell is this little guy? And how can you talk to him the way he's talking like that? And it was, that. And then I bumped into the premiere of the first topic in Wellington. And he walked by me. And I saw him doing interviews, and I went, okay, I don't need to disturb him. And I was walking by, and as I walked by, and he must have been in the corner, and he went, Kiran, turn around. And I turned around, and Cameron gave me a hug, and my nephew was with me, and my nephew was going with camera because, and I went, would you mind,
Yeah.
a photograph, and things were going through my mind. And he goes, yeah. And I went, we can have your wife in there. And he goes, oh, really? And I went, yeah. And so he was calling over. And I went, Cameron, think about after and me. The newborn sister. He went,
Yeah.
give me a look. And he went, I was expecting that. And then he just, laughed it off.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, I mean, there's probably not many people that they can impress you with who they know at this point. Peter Jackson's bringing James Cameron on. You're like, yeah, we're old pals. Who else you got?
I mean, the thing is, I like to talk to people. Doesn't matter who they are, directors, producers, people sweeping the floor in the in the studio, whatever. And I'll talk to everyone, and I will have fun with them, and tell them a little bit of my stories and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
you're telling us right now.
Yeah, so and one of the things was I did a movie called David Gordon Green, the one he did in Ireland. He got used to hearing my stories. And then one day I was talking with the sound guys, and they wanted to know more things. And because he had the earplug in, so he could hear my story, and he came running towards where I was and went, right, tell me more. And I went, aren't you supposed to be working or doing something? And he goes, yeah, give me 5-10 minutes and then I'll go.
Yeah. Yeah, you got the stories, man. So of all these people that you worked with, I mean, what was the one role that you're most proud of? Either because of the people you worked with, or because of the skills you got to portray, or the impact of the movie. What was the thing you're proudest of, you think?
There are two things that I can talk about. One is the legend, playing a blunder. Yep. That was the first time I'm going to play a character that big, put it that way. And it was really fun, and working with Ridley was really good. I connected with Ridley on that movie, and it was really brilliant to work with Wade Blunder character, and really gave me a lot of pointers about what I had to do and what I need to learn as well. And that was a good learning point for me in that movie. And playing Guinness Break was really good on Narnia, the Lion Witch at the World, because that was a really big character as well. And that was like going, okay, I need to really, learn them and give him an history, and then give him a future, and your middle part is your script. I wasn't expecting Andrew or anybody asking me about that. He spoke to me first and he went, what do you think of your character? And I went, yeah, it's really good fun. I'm going to enjoy it. Do you know the history of your character? And I went, yeah, I'm passing this character. What happened to me in the school in Kenya? And he went, and I went in Kenya. I used to I'm now popular, but I was still getting bullied by few. And same thing happened here when I came to London. And what happened was on my first day, people, white, black, whatever, they were all picking me up and throwing and playing with me, and I didn't like that. And it kept on going, and I got rescued eventually I got rescued by skinheads of all the people. And and then it all stopped. And God decided I'm going to, base that character on Guinevere. And that he's been bullied by good and bad people, but there are some bad people who come to his rescue. Mm-hmm. And he works his way up. I never did that with skinheads. But in that movie, I gave him history that he has worked really hard to get where he wanted to be. Told that to Andrew, and he go walk to your officer. And then I went my feet wanted to kill the White Queen. And take it from her. And then Andrew went, that's a big ambition happened. Yeah, that's what I want, to be, and kill the dragon. Aha. And then it was like, okay, now I can do this and that. And even I'm not going to give you an eyelid. I'm, you know, I'm not going to look at you on the screen at any point. So I'm going to keep that in mind. And
Yeah.
and that chemistry worked with us together really well.
Yeah. That's great.
What was the worst injury you ever suffered as a stuntman?
Breaking my back.
Really?
Yeah.
What
You
was
can
that
give
on?
us 3 more.
Yeah. When did that, what was that on? Which movie?
It was on the Lord of the Rings. It was
Oh,
Oh, wow.
last movie, The Return of the King. And remember the big fight at the end with mammoths like animals and
Yeah.
Owen and Mary was sitting in front of her. So we did, on location, we did the last thing, getting into the fight on the horses. That was done later on, jumping off the horse and stabbing the witch king. I did that. And then Miranda's fight was done at that point on the location. And then we came back to studios in Wellington. And this was the last month of the last pickups for the last movie, basically. And Peter goes, okay, we are going back to that you are now marching or riding into the fight at the very beginning. Because Mary is holding on to the mains and Miranda is steering the horse and she drops the steers. Mary has to pick them up and he's never ridden, so he doesn't know how to ride, going all over the place with the hands. And that's difficult because the horse doesn't know what he's doing. Because we had to train the horse again and all that. And then we were in the paddock in outside Wellington. And what happened was we did the run in the small paddock. It worked really well after rehearsing and rehearsing, and then in the small paddock. And then the horse master decided that we should go into the big paddock. And there were loose horses there. And my horse didn't really like that. And the first run we did, he bolted towards the horses. And I couldn't stop him. And we started with Miranda stealing the horse, dropping the reins, Mary picking up and riding, and going at full gallop, literally full gallop. And he started bolting to the other horses, and I tried to pull him, I couldn't pull him. And Miranda stunt girl went, dropped up, steer, and I'll take it and get hold of the reins. And I did that. And she pulled the horse and we did another run and the same thing happened. Third run. And she went after the third run, she went, Kiran, call it. And I, just that we can't do it today. We will let you come back tomorrow. And I went, look, let's do one more. And after that, I'll call it. And that one was one too many. And he bolted. We stopped the horse and we relaxed. And he ran and went into gallop. And as he went into gallop, I came off the horse. Wow. And I broke my back. I fractured my back.
Yeah. That's a long way down. That's a long drop.
It's a long drop because he was so fast that I couldn't even kick off him to turn around properly and land properly.
Yeah.
I landed on my front and my back must have went.
How long were you out of commission?
I was out of condition for 3 months. I couldn't do the last month of filming because I was in the hospital for about 3 nights. And when I came out, I was in the brace and crutches. And I was lucky that there was a friend, a guy called Matt, has just come out of the uni in physio and training. And he came and looked after me and, got me strong again. And within 3 months, he got me out of the brace and crutches. And I was able to fly back to London.
Did you make a full recovery or does it still hurt you?
No, I'm really good because Matt really, really made me work hard and make my back stronger again. No, because after I came back and I went back into the stunts, into a high fall.
You've put in your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
Well, Kiran, you are a true Hollywood legend, and we cannot express to you how much of an honor it's been to speak with you today. So thank you so much for doing this. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure. It's been pleasure, giving you a lot of stories.